Hey there, folks. Welcome back to the Overflow. My name is Micah Curtis.
And I'm Alex Baldwin, also known as the Hatman.
And for those of you who do not know, as I blind myself with a bright light, the Overflow is the weekly show where we take on the questions that are given to us right before the podcast, and then we sadly are not, or during the podcast, that sadly we're not able to get around to answering. So we're going to go ahead and dig right into it. Hatman, politics or entertainment?
I think we did entertainment last time, so let's start with politics this time.
Okay, so first one is Hardboiled Entertainment says, in the end, why did CNN fire Marc Lamont Hill? They've got a lot of idiots spewing disgusting nonsense all of the time. Yes, but none of them have said kill all the Jews.
Yeah.
Like, that's... The fact of the matter is that there's no real way you can spin what Marc Lamont Hill said as anything but kill the Jews.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult to do that, if at all. And yes, you can, and the left has spun anti-Semitism as no big fucking deal in the past, but this time it's kind of overt.
Yeah. So yeah, that's basically the long and short of it. Like, there's a lot of stuff that gets spewed, but this one is pretty much calling for genocide.
Yeah.
And I would like to think that CNN, it's okay to be racist against white people, but you can't call for the mass killing of them or any other people group. So,
swear to God, if CNN gets Linda Sarsour on as a contributor next.
Ugh.
Jesus.
All right, Autis Whisper wants to know thoughts on the Yellow Jacket protests going on in France.
Oh, okay.
So I have heard a lot of conflicting reports on this one.
Same.
And I don't know what to believe. I get one that says that there's a lot of people who might be associated with Antifa and things like that. There's others that are saying it's just citizens.
So what I understand of it is the protests came about as a reaction to Macron's proposed gas tax, which he used to sort of push the Paris Accords, Paris Climate Accords.
Yes, which is an example of what would happen to any nation that could possibly go with what the Accords wanted.
Yeah, effectively, it was a big-ass carbon tax. And people rightfully got pissed off. They started blocking, what was it, like oil? Something to do with oil dispensaries or something of the sort. I don't remember off the top of my head. But they started blocking that. Gas stations have started to run out of fuel. The cops are now like siding with the protesters, and I'm not even shitting you. Like fire departments have turned their back on Macron. It's getting ridiculous, and now you've got some people saying these protests are not so much about fuel, but because of Macron's economic policies that are quote unquote favoring the rich. Basically, they thought they were going to get a progressive leader, and they got more of the fucking same.
Mm-hmm.
What a surprise.
Okay.
So now you're getting these protests, and it looks like Antifa is getting involved too, because you've had like "Smash Capitalism" spray painted on the Arc de Triomphe, which is kind of weird because it's in English, not in French. So you've also got people saying, no, that's a false flag. There's people trying to basically false flag the Yellow Jackets, and it's a fucking mess. So
yeah, we're gonna need some actual reporting there before we can really say anything. Let's give some hypotheticals, just for the sake of it, so that Autis Whisper doesn't feel like he wasted a question. If it is people thinking that they were going to have a more progressive president, and that's what these protests are about, and it's basically far left people doing it, then we get another. It's basically France has learned fucking nothing since the French Revolution, and in which case it's their own damn fault. You know, they should think, hey, maybe doing the same thing over and over again is the definition of insanity.
Yeah.
You know, thinking that you're going to get different results. You've never gotten different results.
Yep. About to say the French Revolution ended with Napoleon, remember?
Yeah. So, granted, they had no good options in their election anyway, but because I genuinely think that if, what's-her-name, Marine Le Pen, had become the president of France, then the same thing would probably have already happened.
It probably would have happened sooner.
Yeah, because her economic...
way more lefties in France anyway.
Yeah,
it would have been... Yeah.
Beyond any of that, just her policies, economic policies, were so stupid that it would have gone nowhere fast. You know, there was no one had a good economic plan at all in the French election. There was no one who had one. You know, because it was basically Macron, socialism, or National Socialism.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't work. It never works. Idiots. Fuck them.
Fuck them.
Fuck them.
Fucking cheese-eating surrender monkeys. All right. Koopa's Revenge Home says, thoughts on Theresa May's Freudian slip. Wait, no, we didn't give the opposite. So if it is people protesting these sorts of policies and they don't want their taxes raised, then, and the whole country's turning against Macron, I genuinely wonder if they're going to start to realize that the problem is big government who has control over everything in your life, and these accords were retarded and aren't going to do anything about global warming anyway. So, anyway. Gee, Trump was right about them. Go figure. Okay, thoughts on Theresa May's Freudian slip? I have no idea what you're talking about.
Neither do I.
Must be something about Brexit. I don't know. I hear that the negotiations aren't going very well. So, Brian Gilmartin, would you agree that conservatism means being cautious and in doing so avoiding the madhouse, e.g. not getting involved in drama, jumping to conclusions, etc.? Because I see a lot of conservatives letting their emotions getting the better of them. Well, yeah, that's generally the idea, is conservatism at its core is recognizing let's compare and contrast belief systems. So progressives think always forward, forward always is the best way to put it, in my opinion. Now, the conservative says, no, that might be a minefield in front of you. Let's be careful about this. Let's be cautious. Let's think about it. Let's be rational. You know, let's you know, look at the situation and try to come to a better conclusion about whether or not forward is the best way, or maybe to hang a left first and then go forward. Both are concerned with the path forward. I think that the problem with liberals is they are, and lefties and all of them, like the entire left, is that they think about what forward is, and that it must always mean improvement, and maybe it's not improvement, but maybe it's still forward, if that makes sense. Like you're definitely moving, but just because you're moving doesn't mean you're actually making progress. Not all movement is progress.
Yeah, it's the idea that change is good in the idea of the progressive. And for the conservative, change is not always good.
Yes.
Some things need to stay the same.
Exactly. Some things work, some things don't. I talk about the road a lot. And that's part of what I mean with that, is the road is it is a constant, that there are constants in this universe. And I think that's one thing that's very key to conservative belief. Now, in regards to conservatives letting their emotions get the better of them, well, right now we live in tenuous times and everybody's emotional. Assuming you're just talking about, like, the normal people you talk to. You know, not talking like the right-wing goofballs like or conspiracy theorists like Alex Jones or James Alsop or Nick Fuentes. You know, well, Alsop and Fuentes are kind of alt-righters. So, but point being is that, you know, they're very emotionally based. All their arguments are emotional. Everything they say is an appeal to emotion, trying to, you know, pin blame of something onto some shadow, whether it be globalism, which I'm not saying is good, or the Jews, or something like that. You know, but I think that's always been something that's on the right and on the left, is that there's a lot of emotion. You know, it's just part of living around people. You know, I talk to people all day for my job. Everybody's emotional. Everybody. It's just whether or not you have the self-discipline to know when to let your emotions out and when to hold them in. And a lot of people just don't have that self-discipline. I think if more people did, we could probably have more positive discussion, but I think it's a sign of the times. Constant instant gratification. Everybody wants their way and they want it now. Their parents sucked, so they didn't learn anything about self-discipline, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much, yeah.
All right. Gojira asks, thoughts on Illinois Rep. Stephanie Kifowitz calling for the death of a Republican's family. Fuck her.
Yeah, that's your territory up there.
Yeah, but it doesn't surprise me. Things are tense in Illinois. You know, this is a state, like several others, where the blue area of the state, there's two parts of Illinois that are blue. There's Chicago, obviously, and then there's Champaign. Champaign is where the University of Illinois is, and it is a blue area, though it sometimes turns purple. My area, south of me, most area north of me as well, up until you get to Chicago, that's all red. So when it comes to the Illinois Congress, it really is a microcosm of the country as a whole, where most of the space, most of the area, mileage is red. But the concentrations of the populace are largely blue, or at least the big one is, and that's true in the United States. You know, and it's very true in Illinois. Chicago is most of our population. I think it's over half, and I think it's disgusting. I think she should resign. I don't know if you can really force someone to resign from an elected position in my state, but I think that she's an evil woman, and I think that what she said.
Way to remove her.
There's a possible impeachment, or her party could put in a vote of no confidence, but that's not going to happen because there were Democrats applauding her on the floor.
Oh,
now,
Christ.
yeah. Now, here's what made it more disgusting was this was a budget debate. A budget debate.
Huh?
Yeah. And she said that she wanted another senator, an Illinois senator, an Illinois state senator, to feed something to his children that has Legionnaires in it. To his wife and children. These folks are lucky that I'm not an Illinois representative. Because the first thing I would have done in my turn to speak is I would have pointed to her and said, "You're the reason why the Second Amendment exists. You are a tyrant, you are a sociopath, and you have no business within this chamber." And then I would move not just to dismiss the vote, I would also move to have her ejected from the chamber, and I would also move for an impeachment proceeding. Because you're threatening another senator.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have her, and I would have the head of the committee muzzle her. Because what she did wasn't just uncouth, it was evil. And such things should...
unbecoming, as it were.
Exactly. It's the same thing that happened to Elizabeth Warren when she accused Jeff Sessions of racism. Which, by the way, Jeff Sessions has a considerably better record of civil rights work in the United States than Elizabeth Warren does. He certainly never faked his race.
Nope.
So, but he fought for other people. But that's the problem that we have right now in our politics, is that there are some Democrats out there that are nuts. And we need to stand up to them in some way, shape, or form. So I would ask, if you live in Illinois and you're from her district, I am not. She is not my representative. I would ask that you vote her out. So don't confront her in public or anything like that. Leave her alone, but vote her out. She does not deserve to be there. Find somebody who's not going to act like somebody who disagrees with you needs to die. All right, Brimshay asks, have we seen the movie musical 1776? I have not.
I have not either.
Yep. So, yeah, that's kind of the long and short of that. All right, now on to entertainment. Let's go ahead. We had one on Twitter from Dank Horse Elric. I love that he changed his name because I started calling My Little Pony Dank Horses. So, that's awesome. But he says here, I've been working on designing my own pen and paper RPG system, and while doing research, I found something a bit odd. Many of the articles and forum threads I came across on the subject seem to emphasize similar traits as preferable, namely simplified, highly streamlined mechanics and an emphasis on storytelling and social interaction over combat and simulation. I didn't think much at first. Now I've got this gut feeling that there's some ulterior motive. All this advice seems to be geared towards designing games for fake hipster geeks. Are RPG sites forums trying to subtly influence what players and designers think of as good mechanics, like all those fart-sniffing game scholars of the pre-GGJ days? I am of the opinion that a lot of people you find on forums these days are largely tend to be progressive. Reddit, I think, is a really good example of that. And I personally simply just would design the system for how you want to design the world. I, at one point, was trying to design a Fallout D20, and I did an okay job of it, but it needed a lot of work. But the design was to have bloody combat and, kind of get the feeling of the turn-by-turn basis of the old Fallout games. And that's, go for what the kind of feel you want when you're designing something. What do you want this world to feel like? What do you want the combat to feel like? What do you want people to feel whenever they are moving from one area to another? Maybe that does make me sound like a hipster, but don't think that you should short on the combat at all. Because if strife is a part of this, that needs to be something you take into account. So, yeah, focus on your combat and add as much detail as you want to it. Just keep in mind who's going to be playing the game with you. Hatman, what do you think?
Honestly, I think it's more of a... People don't want to develop any sort of, actual fight mechanics for it. Because a lot of it you could just pick and choose, which version meets, the story that you're creating. And I would say story is more important than the actual mechanics of it. Because if you don't have anything compelling to keep your attention there, no amount of gameplay is going to be worthwhile.
Mm-hmm.
You're just going to be rolling dice mindlessly.
Pretty much.
So, yeah, I think that's probably the reason why you're seeing a lot of that there. And yes, progressives will tend to focus more on that and how they can make things more inclusive and whatnot. But that shouldn't be a reason to knock the importance of story and character building altogether.
There we go. All right. Koopa's Revenge Home wants to know, have either of us seen Bohemian Rhapsody yet? Critics hate it for not being political because of McGay, even though Mercury was anti-label and anti-political. I have not seen it yet. I haven't taken the time to do so. I want to, though, because I'm a big Queen fan. I still maintain that Freddie Mercury is the greatest frontman that has ever been in rock and roll.
Oh, absolutely.
There's a lot of really good ones that I really like, especially in rock. You've got your obvious ones like Mick Jagger, or, well, who would you consider the frontman of Kiss? Gene or, oh God, why is his name, or Paul, I don't know, or both of them. They're both great frontmen, but whenever they're doing God of Thunder or
Bad to
Detroit
say,
Rock City,
it depends. It depends on the song, really.
Yeah, Because yeah, technically Peter is the front man during Black Diamond, which is my favorite song. But
was.
Well, yeah, but the 4 originals will always be my Kiss. Like that's for a good chunk of my life. That's who was Kiss. Like I was too young to remember the Lick It Up era. But anyway, I do want to see it. I want to see how well they really get Freddy's life, because the sexuality really was only a small part of who he was as a man, and he would tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was very flamboyant and always an entertainer. He loved and lived to entertain people. But you know, if it's focusing on him as an entertainer, then they got it right. You know, and I'm hoping that one day I want to see a same sort of biopic about Judas Priest and Rob Halford, because it would be a similar story, because Rob was gay the entire time, and the whole band knew it and kept it under wraps, I think, until the 90s. Which is crazy when you think about it. Who do you know in music that kept themselves in the closet that long and didn't really feel uncomfortable? Because apparently when he first talked about it, it was nonchalant.
Mm-hmm.
So, but anyway, I think that when I've talked to a lot of older gay guys, who most of the gay guys that I've ever been friends with are older, you know, and we hang out, we talk, and it's literally just like bro time. But they fuck dudes and I don't. And they always tell me that, you know, they've realized as time has gone on that their sexuality is only a very small part of who they are. And it really distresses them that that's all people want to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I got one buddy named Brian who, he probably, I think he might still watch this. Hi, Brian. We need to get together sometime. He makes chainmail as a hobby sometimes. Shit. Yeah, he's awesome. And he's a big metalhead. So, you know, but he's one of the guys who's always told me, it's like, I don't understand why all this is politicized. It's just who I love. It's like, well, that's just sort of the way that time has gone on. But yeah, for Freddie Mercury, it's not all he was. And I think that's what people want him to be. And I think that's childish.
Yeah, you really shouldn't reduce someone and their accomplishments down to, you know, what demographic they fall in.
Yeah.
Like that.
Because you can be gay or bi and consider Freddie Mercury a win for your side, but who gives a fuck? He was a win for music. Oh, and absolutely. That's what matters most.
Absolutely. I mean, if you really wanted to throw some sort of politics in there, you could say he basically put the importance, or not the importance, the severity of AIDS on the map.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like he, you know, announced that he had it and then died like the next day or something. Something
like that. It was pretty quickly afterwards.
Yeah, it was insane. But you know, you've got a ton of movies that do politicize stuff like that. Like Hidden Figures comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
Like a movie that's supposed to basically recount the efforts of the unsung heroes of the Apollo 11 mission.
Yeah.
But it's reduced to they're black women in STEM.
Pretty much.
Like come the fuck on. Like tell a good story about people who deserve to have their stories told, and don't try to reduce it all to an agenda. Pretty much.
Well, and that's the thing, and this is something that I always tell anyone who is not basically straight white male, or you know, the WASP, the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, is the question that you have to ask yourself at the end of the day is, do you want to be a name that has traits behind it, that has a meaning behind it, that has a life behind it, that has accomplishment behind it, or do you want to be in a pigeonhole? You can only pick one. You don't get both. You either are part of the collective and are forever identified as part of the collective and nothing else, or you are a human being and deserve to be treated like an individual with all the rights and everything that come along with it. Pick one. All right. God, went from entertainment to politics pretty quick there. Yeah. So, Crystal Wing 2149 asks if I could put if we could put Monster Ock from the PS1 Spider-Man game in the Marvel Universe, how would you do it? How powerful would he be, and how many heroes would be needed to fight him? Well, it's basically just Dr. Octopus with the Carnage symbiote. I mean, it's basically the same as anybody else with the Carnage symbiote. It's eventually going to drive them insane. And I'm at the point where I really don't... It's perfectly fine if you want to experiment with the Carnage symbiote on occasion, and there's some interesting stories that have been told with it. Superior Carnage being one, the Carnage Cosmic when the Carnage symbiote latched onto the Silver Surfer, and then the most recent one where the Green Goblin got the symbiote, and Cletus Cassidy ended up taking over his mind through it. So Norman's kind of boned in the head. But there is no character like Cletus Cassidy. And I'd kind of rather it just be Cletus for a while. Because when it comes to taking on a symbiote, basically it's just about just damaging him and to the point where he gets kicked off. And his immunity to fire and sonics is sort of off and on. It seems it's kind of inconsistent. So
yeah. Well, we saw what happened when you go crazy with giving people a specific symbiote. Venom, of course, being the prime example there.
Yeah,
I mean, he was bounced around for how long until he finally went back to Eddie?
For 10 years.
Yeah. And now that he's back with Eddie Brock, we're getting some of the best Venom material that we've had since the 90s.
Oh yeah, possibly ever.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, the thing is that there was also kind of symbiote overdose in the 90s too, because Venom was so popular. Try to name all the symbiotes. It's hard. It's really, really hard. I'll try right now. Venom, Carnage, Toxin, Riot, Phage, Lasher, Scream, and I'm already forgetting one of the Life Foundation symbiotes. Scorn. Then you have Hybrid. Then you have Anti-Venom. Then you have... No, not Scorn. Scorn's not one of the Life Foundation symbiotes. It's Riot, Phage, Lasher, Scream. Which one was in the Venom movie? Was it Riot?
It was Riot, yeah.
Okay. Riot, Scream, Lasher, Phage. Because Scream and Phage are the women.
Mm-hmm.
Riot's the gray one. Phage is the green one. I'm going to have to look it up. But yeah, I can't even remember all of them. But yeah, then there's the Anti-Venom symbiote. Then there's Flash Thompson's sidekick, whose name eludes me at the moment. I can't remember. Mania. And who is now the guy who was Venom before Eddie got it back. So yeah, like there's too many. And I mentioned Scorn already, who they just killed off. Finally. So, yeah. I kind of don't... I think that let's just keep Venom. Let's just keep Carnage. And let's just go with those two. I think that they're big enough characters to work on their own merit at this point. The only one that I would ever really want to bring back would be if we bring Flash Thompson back to life and make him Anti-Venom again. So. Autis Whisperer, thoughts on Short Fat Otaku getting his channel deleted? What?
Yeah, apparently he got fucking nuked. I don't know. He's in one of the Discord servers that I'm a part of, and he hadn't said anything about it yet. So I have no fucking idea what's going on. I can only presume that he's appealed it.
I would hope, but yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
I wonder who flagged him.
No fucking idea.
All right, Brian Gilmon wants to know, what's your prediction for the FF7 remake? Do you think it'll actually get made or get canceled? Well, it's apparently still in development. I mean,
yep.
I think that what they're wanting to do is, if it doesn't get announced, or the release date doesn't get announced anytime this year, it's probably because I know that they've got one more big expansion coming for Final Fantasy 15. And then another one for Final Fantasy XIV, the MMO, and they probably don't want to have clashing announcements for it because Final Fantasy VII will override everything.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a remake that they've been planning for a long time. They finally had a tech demo that they had showed off. It's gonna happen, but I have a feeling if it comes out, it'll be at the end of the PlayStation 4's life cycle or the beginning of the next one.
So, yeah, well, it's supposed to be episodic too, isn't it?
They said that it's going to be broken down into 3 parts. Basically kind of like a disc-by-disc basis. So,
Agony. Agony's who you were thinking of.
Yes, that's it. Okay. But anyway, so yeah, I think it's going to come out. It's just going to be a while. Let's see. Swordsman 100. Did they ever add in that single-player offline mode in For Honor? Well, there's campaign. You can play. Yeah, you could play offline multiplayer against bots if you want to. So yeah, it's been there the whole time. There's also an arcade mode now that is like randomly generated enemies as well. So
you can Deus Vult against NPCs.
Yes. Yes, you can.
Oh yes.
Samurai Bear says, thoughts on the Cowboy Bebop live-action show?
No.
No.
Just no.
Just no. Next question. Hardboiled Entertainment. Have either of us heard of the conservative rock band Madison Rising? No.
Nope.
Can't say I have. Don't know what I'd think about it. Do you guys think there's any... Oh, Seth Hackley says, do you think there's any truth to the allegations that the Freemasons are practitioners of the occult, or is that just a conspiracy theory? I'm guessing Brainbox didn't know where to... Yeah, very conspiracy theories. I've met Freemasons. It's nothing like that.
Yeah.
And then finally, is it wrong to be a furry or a brony? Yes. Actually, no. I'll be honest. I really don't give a shit if you're a brony. I'll make fun of you for it. But at the end of the day, you can like whatever you want. I'm just going to give you shit. And you can give me shit for stuff I like, too. That's perfectly fine.
Yeah, just like everybody gives me shit for
Yubnub.
Well, for Yubnub and for hating Kingdom Hearts and for liking Gwen Stacy and everything else. Pretty clearly.
Yeah, it happens, and it's fine. You like whatever you want. You know, I think that through reviewing all this stuff that we've been doing, I've kind of gained an appreciation for other people's perspectives a lot more than I had before. So I'm, do you, basically. But with the furry thing, so if you are going around in an animal costume, fucking other people in animal costumes, see a therapist.
That's the thing about the furry fandom now. It went from literally just like anthro enthusiasts to sexual deviants.
Yeah.
And the fact that I'm seeing a lot more involvement with children becoming furries now.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm kind of perturbed by that.
Yep.
Like, I don't mind kids making their own fursuits and shit. What I mind is the goddamn community.
Yeah.
I don't like that shit. No. Fuck that.
Yeah, fuck
Too
all
much
that.
emphasis on yiffing now. Fuck that shit.
Yeah, that's generally the problem. Once you start introducing children, it gets even worse. Trust me, folks. Like, it always spirals downhill once sex starts coming into it, because there's no morality that's checking that at all. This is part of the reason why Christians are so adamant about a pure sex life, is because we know that once you start going down the dark path, forever will it dominate your destiny. To quote Star Wars. But in all seriousness, there's a reason that Christ says, if your right hand should cause you to sin, cut it off. Now, he doesn't mean literally, though I will be honest, one thing, one of my biggest struggles in my lifetime has been with sex addiction and my hands not being idle. So I thought to myself one day, years ago, what happens if I tattoo crosses on my arms? Those aren't my arms anymore. What if I tattoo it, what happens when you dedicate yourself to someone else, like the Bible says you should do in marriage? Wives, surrender yourselves to your husbands. Husbands, love your wives. And the tense in the Greek that is used for the word love actually does mean surrender. So you're actually surrendering to one another in that case. You're surrendering that desire and saying, it will only be with this person whom I have wed. Is it strict? Is it restrictive? Absolutely. That's the point. Is because we humans can be big dumb animals. And sometimes we need a collar. And we need to allow God to put that collar on us. And I'm using animal references for a reason here, because it does fit. But my point is that every time I've ever seen sexual deviancy start to get introduced into a fandom or something along those lines, it always goes downhill from there.
Mm-hmm.
Because right now, in the United States, we have a crisis of meaning. Everyone is searching for meaning these days. Everyone is. And they're having a hard time finding it. So, that's a whole nother discussion. That's actually, when I finally get around to having a sit down with the distributist, that's what he and I will probably end up talking about. Because I loved his series on what's wrong with nerd culture, and I want to talk to him about this, because this is something I know he's observed. This is something we've obviously observed as well, and I think it'll be a good discussion when I can get around to it. So it's about time. But luckily I might have some. All of my script writing for now is done. Bob, the artist, Bob Stone, which you can follow him on Twitter at Artist Bob Stone, is working on the art for Project Lazarus right now. He told me he's going to start sending me some prints so we can tweet them out there and start getting the hype going. Stuff like that. And yeah, it's a just no. Just don't do it, please.
Yeah. Just say no.
Just say yes to Deus Vult. And I'm being serious. I'm getting that tattooed on my arm. That just made the decision for me. I'm gonna get. It's not just a cross tattoo that you see on a lot of these videos. I'm gonna have a banner around that cross that says Deus Vult.
Deus Vult indeed.
And I think that's what's going to be the theme of my tattoos. They'll probably be religious-based, and they'll probably have Latin attached to them. Scripture from the Vulgate and things like that, or different phrases from Latin that emphasize things. Like one of them that I wanted to put on there was, on my arm was, war is sweet for those who have never tasted it, so on and so forth. My body's a temple of the Holy Spirit. I might as well decorate it like one. So, we are going to go ahead and take off. That was the last question. A couple things for this month. One thing that I am planning on doing at some point is doing a special Christmas live stream where I actually read how I read the Christmas story every year. Where I start in the book of John, chapter 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. And go through that first...
Other way around. With right. God, and the Word was God.
Was God. Start from that, and then I go into... I read from the book of Marc after the genealogy, which is... Marc, I believe it's his mother's side. Isn't it? Yeah, Matthew's the father's side, Marc is the mother. So, but I might read through that even, just to connect the dots from David to Christ. And do that at some point. I am planning to do it on a Friday. Christmas is on the 25th, so that's a Tuesday. I might do it on Friday the 21st instead of game night. Speaking of which, right now game night is looking like it will probably be on Thursday evening this week instead of Friday. And there's a couple possibilities depending on what Hatman's schedule is. So he and I will talk about that, and then be on look out on Twitter if you're not following me already at Micah C for the announcement, because I'll put it on there. So other than that, I would like to say if you are a patron, I'm actually going to be reformatting the Patreon to more fit the podcast, and things like that. And that's basically what the Patreon is going to be geared towards, since I'm shifting more into a comic creator role in my life in regards to my online presence. But I wanted the podcast could start going towards, equipment, maybe getting the podcast back on iTunes, or at least getting it on Stitcher or something. Who knows? That's going to take a lot of work. So we'll have to see what happens there. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and take off. Hatman, any final words? Aside from no yiffing?
Aside from no yiffing, happy birthday tomorrow.
Thanks, buddy. All right, folks. We're going to go ahead and take off. My name is Micah Curtis.
And I'm Alex Baldwin, also known as the Hatman.
Thank you for watching. Deus Volt.
Deus Volt.